I want to say that I'm really appreciative of you sharing this, even though I know we have to take precautions because too many people still think that people that see ghosts, spirits are not too centered. I have to say though that privately everybody is telling me, from top executives to people that serve tables, everybody is telling me about their experiences. We're going to be talking about an experience you had, which I think a lot of people are going to have with the spirit world, which is rather frightening. But tell me, how did this all start with you, the whole contact with the spirit world?
It started at a very early age. I'm an only child, so I was always playing with imaginary friends and whatnot, which, now I do believe were spirits. There was a car accident, and a car came through my house and ran into my crib when I was a few months old. And
wow.
All of the walls had collapsed, and there was plaster, hanging right above my crib, but it never touched me. I was completely untouched, so I always felt like something was there protecting me, some spirit or guardian, or yes.
You also must have had an out-of-body experience, because you have to have been shocked. But you don't remember?
No, I have no recollection.
I suspect that event really threw you into the spirit world, because when we become frightened enough, we escape into the other dimensions.
That makes sense.
And I tell people, which they don't like to hear, that really, really good psychics have either had an electrical accident or went through some kind of horrible situation or abuse when they were young. And
interesting.
Isn't that interesting? So,
right.
So
the years progressed, and I was terrified to go into my basement, and it was not a scary basement. It was completely remodeled and finished and a perfectly good living space. But I was always terrified of it. I would never go downstairs by myself. I would walk up the stairs backwards because I always felt that something was behind me. I started a Ghostbusters Girls Club when I was around 8 years old.
8 years old, you started a Ghostbusters Girls Club. And how many people were there?
Like 4.
And could they see too?
No. I was the only one that was able to see.
How long did that last?
Can you ask that question again?
Which question was it?
How long did that last?
How long did the Ghostbusters
Wait
Club?
for me to finish talking and then you ask it.
How long did the Ghostbusters Club last?
Just a couple of years, but...
That's a long time for an 8-year-old.
Right. But, those are friends that I still have now, because we did have that in common, and that's not something that everyone has in common in terms of, believing in it even. It's not something, as you know, that's talked about. At least it hasn't been until recently. After that, I think the first time I really consciously remember seeing a ghost was when I was 12, and I was in my basement and I was having a slumber party, and I had friends that were twins, and one was on either side of me, and they were doing that, I forget what it's called, when twins can talk to each other in their sleep. So they were doing this, and it woke me up, and all of a sudden, I said, look at that, or no, I didn't even say look at that. That's what was interesting. There was no power of suggestion, and all of a sudden they snapped out of it, and we were all looking at this little boy curled up on my beanbag chair. We all started screaming, at the same time. So that was the first time. In high school, it just got worse and worse. I would have to clean my room before I could leave, and I would have everything organized. I would leave my room, and I would come back, and everything was a disaster. So I wasn't allowed to go anywhere.
Poltergeist.
Yes. I had...
Which would be that little boy.
Possibly.
Because when that happens, it's usually a very young spirit.
Okay, that makes sense. I would have those little kinetic things, and they would move and move and move. There were no batteries in them, because you have to move them. And then
did you have a lot of depressions?
Yes.
Because people who have premature contact with the spirit world have a lot of depressions.
Yes.
That's why when I was young, I had a lot of contact with the spirit world. They scared the living daylights out of me. They played so many games with me. They jerked me around so royally that I completely shut down, and it wasn't until 15 years ago that I opened up again, and I said, okay, I'll look at you, but I'm not talking to you.
Right.
Okay? And it wasn't until recently that I allowed my spirit guides to talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that I consider the fact that they may be something that's real and that's honest. Because, and it creates a lot of mood issues.
Right. It was definitely worse. I definitely went through a lot of depression. I still suffer from it now. And as a teenager, it's hard enough to be a teenager, but then to be depressed and then have these things going on, that are wreaking havoc on your life, and you can't really talk about it except for a few select people. My parents never believed me. I grew up in a very Christian family, and they don't believe in spirits, when you die.
Actually, the Christians believe incredibly in spirits.
Well,
but you
not
have to
my
be
people.
under very particular circumstances that they dictate.
Okay.
But absolutely, they do exorcisms and everything.
Well, that's Catholic. I was raised Baptist.
Ah.
Yes. So, anyway, it just progressed and started dabbling in a Ouija board, as a lot of kids do, but it was definitely, it was an addiction. It was constant. It was every night. I did do it by myself once, which I know better now, but I mean, it would just fly around.
And you
it was,
get your answers?
Yes, and I would always close my eyes so that I would not have control over, the movement, and it would always be directed towards me. It was always about me. Always, always, always.
One of the things I tell people is that we get real caught up with the spirit world, and we're very impressed and think they're good spirits because they're great psychics.
Yes.
Great psychics, and I said, all the bad spirits are great psychics. All the spirits are great psychics, because everything's revealed over there. So the fact that the spirit's giving you accurate information doesn't mean they're good people.
No, absolutely not. And at first, they come across as they are good, and then it morphs into this other thing. Like once you're drawn in, and you're almost hypnotized by it. And so that controlled my life for several years. And I went to college, and they came with me. The same things would happen, like my room being a mess when I would leave and come back. I would try to write papers, and my computer would go on and off, and the lights would go on and off, and things, the papers would fly around. And I remember the first time I ever spoke to one, I finally started screaming, like, please let me finish my paper, like, we can play later, or something like that.
And you never said, go away?
I said, right now, go away.
Okay.
But it was also kind of a comforting thing, because I was never alone. And I remember walking around campus, and they, were with me. I felt them with me. I would drive to my family's house a few hours away, and I would always think when I looked in the rear view mirror, I would see them sitting there, because I knew that they were there. It was just a matter of them appearing.
Wow.
And one time
So you had an entourage?
Oh, yeah.
Did they have names?
No, not that, I mean, I don't.
Okay, you didn't give them
I
names?
didn't give them names, no.
Males, females?
I couldn't tell. I mean, there was the little boy. We did call him Austin, only because he looked like someone we knew.
Okay.
But I never knew who the rest were. I felt like more male than female for some reason.
Okay.
But one time in college, I did go home, and my parents were not there, and I needed to take a shower, and the shower was in the basement. And I said, oh, I can't go to the basement. I, swore I would never go there alone. And I'm like, I'm 20 years old, whatever I was at the time. I can do this. Went downstairs, took a shower, came out, walked back upstairs, and I could hear my cat going crazy. I could hear boxes being turned over, just madness. And so I thought for sure someone was in my house and killing my cat. And I went downstairs, and nothing was disturbed, and he came trotting upstairs. But, I mean, I had a butcher knife. I walked out into the middle of the street, and it was just so ironic that all of that happened, when I finally did go alone.
Down the
After
stairs.
I told myself I never would. So just, I could go on for hours about different circumstances.
Did they, at any point, did they kind of leave you?
It seemed to, yes. When I left college and left my hometown, yes. I have not had any experiences for the past 10 years or so.
Except what's bringing you here
Except, yes.
today.
Yes.
What you told me that I'd like for you to repeat because it affected me so much. And
Sure.
I actually did not feel good walking away from you at that point.
Right.
But the circumstances were such that was...
Right.
There was
No,
an
I
option.
understand. I have a very good friend who's also a very strong Christian, and he's been going through a lot of turmoil, a lot of problems, and he's always been very special, to the extent of special, like in a weird, I don't even know how to describe it, but almost like connected to God in a way, somehow.
Okay.
Like very, I can't put it
Very
into words.
spiritual.
Yes.
very magical, sacred.
Something, yes,
Okay.
like that. Anyway, the things he's been going through recently, he's been having thoughts of not only killing himself, but killing other people. And so...
You know what that is, don't you?
Demon?
No, those are spirits.
Possession?
Those are spirits talking into people's heads. And so many of them are doing it, and so many people,
Right.
because there's such a clampdown on the knowledge about spirits, so many people think those are their thoughts.
Right.
And they're not.
Right, because he's saying,
If you say,
I don't
do
know
you really
what's
want to
wrong
kill
with
people?
me.
And they'll go, no.
No.
So then you know what? Guess what? A lot of what's in our heads is not
Right.
ours. It
Right.
feels like it's ours, the sound of our voice, but it's not ours.
Right.
I'll be more than glad to speak to him if you need for me to do that.
Thank you.
Not his, and that spray that I gave you is very effective for panic attacks.
Yes.
Because most people who have that have panic attacks.
He's been having panic attacks.
The panic attacks are when an entity attacks and they're hammering at the person to get in to the aura,
Mm-hmm.
and the person's fighting back.
Yes, he's definitely having an internal fight and even physical, and so I just felt like it was like, I almost thought he was possessed or something.
Correct.
That's really all I could come up with, because I knew it wasn't like a mental illness. I did all kinds of... So once I finally left my house, like I said, things stopped happening to me, but then finally my spirits revealed themselves to my father, which was interesting, because of after all of these years, he finally believed me. He has seen a little girl in the home as well as an older woman.
Tell me about that house.
There's nothing. I researched the home to see if there was anything strange.
How old was the home?
1965.
Okay.
There had only been, I think, 2 homeowners prior to my parents.
So is that home near like a wooded area?
There are a little bit of woods around. Where I'm from was a Native American settlement.
Okay, so I'm reading now as a psychic.
Okay.
You have some wooded area near you,
Little.
and there's a wooded area that kind of goes down,
Yes.
correct?
Yes. That's where I played when I was little.
And that is a very sacred place. Okay?
Okay.
See, I'm getting chills.
Okay.
So that's where you got all of this from, and that's
Okay.
them
That's
following
where I
you.
spent most of my time.
You spent most of your time there. That was a very sacred place. And I actually see some of the Indians now, and they're smiling at you when you were a child and you were there.
Interesting.
And you didn't feel
No, I
lonely.
just got chills.
You got you, and you weren't lonely because of them. Do you want me to keep reading that for you?
Sure.
Okay. They did special ceremonies on you to give you a lot of protection, and for your path to be open, but for you not to be too open. They wanted you to have kind of like a straight path, and they understood that the modern world that you were going to live in could take you off of your path of spirituality and sacredness. So they built like a path. And actually when you would move or travel, I've never heard of this before, but I simply am reading, they would actually contact other spirits and let them know that you were coming, so that the path could be smooth there also. So I suspect you've had some really interesting things happening to you, such as the car devastating your room and you were totally protected. So this happened even before you were like a little girl. I guess they kind of knew that you were coming. That should mean that you have a pretty special mission.
Yes. That's...
Okay? So you have tremendous protection, but a lot of us have protection, but we don't have as much, how can I describe it? I think you were treated very special. I think you had very special treatment. Because I get a lot of protection. I don't get that kind of treatment, okay? I gotta battle my own way through the darkness. I don't get that kind of company. I think dark forces really heavily invaded me because of happenings in my childhood. And I think you had a lot of protection from day one because of where you lived and your connection to the land.
Interesting.
And what is it that I had you do when you told me how you felt? What did I have you do?
Stand against a tree.
You stand against a tree. And how much better did you feel?
100%.
Okay. In the wooded area, nature, Mother Earth,
Interesting.
grounding.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting.
Interesting. Interesting. So I'm going to ask you guys about this thing on your leg. Because you were not
So
solid
was
when
I
I...
not protected?
Let me find out what it is that this is all about. I really appreciate this information. The background is fascinating, and the fact that a negative representative from the spirit world was able to actually hurt your leg is pretty big and important that people
Pretty
know that this
terrifying.
happens. It's important that you go back and recollect beyond what you were thinking about your friend. What other circumstances may have made you weak had you not had contact with nature, because nature really protects you from spirit influence and spirit attack. Had you been drinking? Were you on some kind of sleeping pills to where you were out of your body? Did you just eat a lot of sugar? Had you done drugs? I'm not saying that you did. What I'm saying is you need to go back and figure out why you would have been so susceptible beyond the thought of your friend. Why you would have been so detached from your body. Were you like fantasizing or daydreaming, which means you're not real into your body.
Right.
The spirits cannot affect you practically at all if you're firmly inside your physical body.
Right.
So you need to go back and check that
Okay,
out so
I'll do
that
that.
this does not happen again.
Okay. Thank you.
But I really appreciate it. It's a fascinating story.
Thank you.
And I love the fact that you came in contact with these spirits in their world, the good spirits having to do with Mother Earth and nature,
Right.
and that they've been so good to you.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for letting me know.